So this is a link to your blended learning activities for thinking about ethics and gaining ethical approval for your research study. Now, happily, you don't actually have to go through this process because it is quite detailed and it can be quite lengthy. And sometimes some of the questions that you have to address in your ethical approval can seem quite arbitrary, given that you're often asking questions of midwives who are healthy rather than sick people. But the process is there as a safeguarding process. So in the second year, I taught you all about the principles of ethics, and we talked about beneficence and non-maleficence. If you remember that, it was all about doing good and doing no harm. And those are the kind of underpinning principles that we apply when we're looking at ethics in research generally. When you go for ethical approvals, you'll see that those principles become a kind of set of things that you have to achieve. So, for instance, we've got things like you've got to demonstrate that your participants have given informed consent or will give informed consent before you do anything, which means any kind of intervention, including such a thing as an interview. You have to show that you are going to guarantee anonymity and confidentiality in everything that you do. And then you have to also demonstrate that your participants can withdraw from a study at any given time without any problems at all. Now, depending on the kind of things you're researching, you will find a different set of requirements, but the principles underneath are always the same. So essentially, any research that involves human beings goes through the same basic principles, which are the three that I've just described to you. And what you have to demonstrate when you're gaining ethical approval is that you have addressed these, and there might very well be concerns that you need to address specifically, but a lot of what you're talking about is quite formulaic, if you like. So if you are, for instance, doing a study in which you want to interview midwives about their views and experiences of birth plans, there are very particular things that you have to undertake. You will have to find ethical approval at different levels depending on what kind of people you're going to be researching among. So, for example, if you're researching among midwives in particular NHS trusts, that's one level of ethical approval that you need. If you're researching among midwives online, then you would only have to get your university's approval and you don't have to go through any kind of NHS ethics. And to that end, I should say that online research is becoming increasingly popular, and this might be one of the reasons why, because it is quite straightforward. The ethical approval system has been quite complex for many years, and that's for good reason, but as a researcher that can be quite time-consuming and quite frustrating at times, because you'll get queries during the process of applying for ethics that seem very minimal to you, but you have to address them. In recent years, in the last couple of years or so, NHS ethics has tried to simplify itself to quite a large degree. So as an example, if you were doing a research study involving focus groups with midwives, and you wanted to talk about birth plans, and you wanted to do those focus groups in 4 different trusts, NHS trusts, because you want to get a broad view of midwives' experiences, because you'll find that it's different everywhere you go. In order to get that, you would apply for ethics from your university, because you work in a university. You'd apply for, this is back in the day, you'd have to apply for NHS ethics, and then you'd have to get approvals from each of the trusts that you were trying to access. Now, recently that's been made simpler, which is a happy thing for researchers, and we now have HRA, Health Research Authority, overseeing everything. And you'll see that the links that I've given you are to their website, and you can walk through the process there, and it's very, very good to have a look at what kind of things you might have to think about. But now that that's now streamlined, what it means is that those 4 trusts that you're trying to get access to, all of that is done from a central point rather than you having to go to each of those trusts' R&D departments and sort them out one by one, because that was what was taking a lot of time. We did this study looking at birth plans, and it took us, I think, almost a year to get through ethics in everything, which is a lot longer than you'd like to hope. So hopefully things will be quicker now. But as I've said, the most important thing that you need to think about is that you have a good understanding of the principles of ethics and a good understanding of the kind of steps that you're going to have to take.